So this morning, let us set our intention to open our minds, our hearts, our very souls to the infinite spiritual truth that we are one with a magnificent power that is an unshakable, unconditional force of love. And we're going to be talking about love, because why not? With everything that's going on this planet, we need to have this talk about love, because we are saturated with fear. We are saturated with all kinds of information that maybe we don't want to be saturated with. So if this is all like lollipops and rainbows, they say, too bad, because that's what we're doing today. We need a little bit of that. We need a little bit of that loving energy just to balance us out, right? Yeah. So we have talked about the mystics, and we have looked at three great spiritual truths that all the mystics arrive at some point. And the first and most important of these is that we are extensions. We are extensions, creations of the oneness of the divine. We live, move, and have our being in this unified field of one love. All of the great religions have come to this, in the essence of what they are, have come to this conclusion, that we are love. We just don't practice it all the time. So this morning we're going to talk about anchoring ourselves in God's love, in that divine love, because we think of God as this infinite energy, this incredible creative force that has created all that is, was, and ever can be. And so that's our definition of this power for good. And no matter what turbulence that might be occurring in your ocean of experiences, it serves us to stay anchored in this realization, because only we can work on our consciousness, and that consciousness is what we experience. So that's why it's really important, and don't think just because I have myself can do nothing. Jesus said that, I have myself can do nothing, but the God within can do it all. So that's what we are talking about. So I did change the name of the talk, so you might have noticed that, sir. Back. It does the bulletin for me. And I decided to move into a talk on love. So this is anchoring in God's love. And I have a story to tell here that was told to New Thought writer Eric Butterworth, who a lot of us know. He's very well known in this New Thought world of ours. And this story it's interesting. So Archibald J. Cronin, and does anyone recognize that name? A.J. Cronin? No, neither did I. He was an outstanding fiction writer in the mid-1900s. But he didn't start out as a writer. In fact, he began his adult life as a medical doctor in Scotland. His successful career as a novelist might not have been possible if not for one specific event. While still in medical school, he assisted one of London's most distinguished surgeons, who was irritable and impatient with this young intern. "You will never be a surgeon. You are too inept and too clumsy," he snarled. Though young Cronin graduated well up in his class, he took that belief with him. It was a heavy-handed criticism that he then came to believe. He went off into the Western Highlands of Scotland to practice medicine, but whenever a patient required even the simplest of surgeries, Cronin prescribed pills, but was fearful of doing any kind of surgery, so he would refer it out. One stormy winter day, a frightened lad burst into his office with the news that the son of the minister had been injured badly and was lying unconscious at home. Dr. Cronin made his way through 3 miles of the snow and ice to examine the boy and found that his legs were paralyzed. Then he discovered 4 crushed vertebrae, and this was causing the paralysis. And he was called to do one of the most delicate operations known in his profession. Nervously, he tried to call all the other doctors, but all the lines were down. The weather was so bad that nobody could get there. He wondered, dare I perform the necessary operation? As soon as he did say that, he heard the demeaning professor his contemptuous voice of his former teacher, and he heard in his head, "You will never be a surgeon. You are too inept and too clumsy." And he told the boy that although he was very sorry, he could not attempt such a delicate operation. But the wise preacher took him aside and said that he would have to perform the operation and that God would help him. Cronin faced what the Bible calls a furnace of affliction. And it was a turning point in his life. In a single moment, he grasped the confidence, tuned into the flow, and was courageous enough to do what had to be done and what only he could do. Calling on a local woman to be his nurse, he administered an anesthesia, and he let the wise, loving support of the minister replace the sneering contempt of his former teacher. Later he wrote, because he started writing novels, and he wrote this, and this isn't a novel. "All of a sudden my hand grew steady. My mind grew cool. I felt confidence in myself. The operation was concluded. The healing had begun. I sat by the boy's bed with a deep sense of thanksgiving, because at last I too was free. The greatest experience of my life was when I walked into the other room and said to the family with a Scottish understatement, 'I think he'll be fine.'" And so this month, in various ways, we are exploring our reason for being. And my friends, we are here on this earth for one reason and one reason alone, and that is to let God be God in us, through us, as us. And what does that story have to do with the talk today? It's a wonderful illustration about how so many of us have allowed something in the past, some kind of judgment, something, to bury who and what we truly are. It happens to most people. Remember though, we've talked about this, we are radiant gemstones. That's who we really are. That gem nature, that brilliant nature of the divine is the truth of who we are. Our true eternal selves know us, and they know this. We sometimes let the debris of erroneous thinking and non-serving beliefs cover up the brilliance of who we really are. Anybody ever experienced anything like that? Each and every one of us, we have to hear this, we can't hear it enough, is a brilliant creation of divinity. Each and every one of us. And you can pick the gem of your dreams. You are that. You are brilliant. That eternal divine self within each and every one of us is absolutely brilliant. And if you don't accept this, and you don't believe it, then it's time to step up and step out. Really. Only you can do this. This is why the love is so important. Only you can love you, truly and absolutely. We are all unique and beneficial. We have beneficial gifts. But we can't experience them if we don't recognize and accept this truth that I'm saying here this day. Not only does that story vividly show us that something was for Archibald Cronin, but it also shows us this sweet and holy moment where he was set free, when he stepped out of his biggest fear. Wow. Just stepped out of it and did what he was meant to do. And if we just look at the story on the surface, it looks like his freedom was brought about by the love and encouragement of the minister. And of course that helped. But what really, really happened was in his moment of need, in that scary, scary instant, he turned within and he let the power of his own innate intelligence guide him. And you cannot go wrong when you truly feel it, know it, and act upon it. When we talk about the universe always has our back, not just our back anymore, our back, our front, our sides, every part of us. When we trust enough in these spiritual teachings that we talk about here, that we teach here, that we hopefully practice, that we realize that truly no one can harm us. Nothing, no thing can harm us. Not really, not really, just looks that way. So he connected with something solid within him, something firm, something sure, something secure, something steady, something dependable, right inside of who he was. He grabbed onto it. In fact, he anchored into it. And it was the presence of God within him. He allowed that divine intelligence to move in and through and as him in that moment. Ernest Holmes writes in Science of Mind, no matter what our emotional storm or what our objective situation may be, there is always something hidden in the inner being that has never been violated. We may stumble, but there is always that eternal voice forever whispering in our ear. That thing which causes the eternal quest, that thing which forever sings and sings. And that thing is our divine selves. Our divine selves, we are eternal beings. These bodies, we shed them when it's time to experience a new experience, to really live, step into the new experience. It's not even life after death. It's life after life. That's what it is. It's life after life. My intention and prayer for us this morning is that we allow this love, God's love, to wash over us, to wash clear all those limiting beliefs that have held us back. So say this after me. I let God's love wash over me. I let God's love wash over me. Yes. It's a great song that we have too. I let God's love wash over me. But just talking about God's love, because we can do all this talking that we want to, but to truly feel it, that's the key right there, to be able to feel what we are saying, to feel these words, and really move into them. Charles Fillmore, in his book, Talks on Truth, wrote this: we may talk about the wisdom of God, but the love of God must be felt in the heart. It cannot be described, and one who has not felt it can have no concept of it from the description of others. But the more we talk about love, the stronger it grows in the consciousness. And if we persist in thinking loving thoughts and speaking loving words, we are sure to bring into our experience the feeling of that great love that is beyond description, the very love of God. We know what we resist persist. And so if we are being inundated constantly, which we are, by news, even if we don't watch it on TV, it's still coming in. I don't watch it on TV, and I'm still getting it. So, but being in that kind of energy creates more of that same energy. We have to discipline ourselves for our own self-love to rise above that, to absolutely know that I am a brilliant, loving being of God. Nothing can harm me. That's a good one. Nothing can harm me. I'm secure in this loving energy. Whatever affirmation you want to use to ground yourself in this knowing, in this spiritual truth. So I want to tell you another little story, because I like these stories, because some people relate to the stories because they make sense and they remember them. So this is from Jack Canfield, and the book is called Success Principles. He wrote all the I was going to say Campbell soup, but or the soup for the soul books, if you know what they are. Chicken. Yeah, chicken soup for the soul. Campbell soup for the soul. Okay, enough of that. Here we go. This is the book. This is what he wrote. A famous research scientist who had made several very important medical breakthroughs was being interviewed by a newspaper reporter who asked him why he thought he was able to achieve so much more than the average person. In other words, what set him apart? He responded that it came from a lesson his mother taught him when he was 2 years old. At 2, he had been trying to take a bottle of milk out of the refrigerator. When he lost his grip, the milk spilled its entire contents all over the kitchen floor. And his mother, instead of scolding him, being irritated with him, or even punishing him for doing something that he had no business doing, she said this: "What a wonderful mess you've made," said no mother ever. Let's go with the story, it goes with the story. What a wonderful mess you've made. I've rarely seen such a huge puddle of milk. Well, the damage is already done. Would you like to get down and play in the milk before we clean it up? But the story's good. Indeed, he did. And after a few minutes, his mother continued. You know, whenever you make a mess like this, eventually you have to clean it up. So how would you like to do that? Would you like to use a towel, a sponge, a mop? Which would you prefer? So after they finished cleaning the milk up, she said, what we have here is a failed experiment in how to carry a big bottle of milk with 2 little hands. So let's go out in the backyard and fill the bottle with water and see if we can discover a way to carry it without dropping it. And they did. But this is a true story in Jack Canfield's book. Because of his mother's love and refusal to get angry or irritated, this little boy grew up to believe in himself. Imagine if we were all treated like that. Wow. You wouldn't even be here. To realize it was okay to make mistakes and to make major contributions to the world. He believed in himself because he wasn't in trouble. It was an accident. And I know that we've all had parents like that, but let's understand. We have so many self-defeating beliefs that are operating within us. Oh my goodness, do we not?
Yes.
Let's let them go.
So we need to clear them up so that we can express ourselves in joy. We need to move into that paradigm that we are worthy of all good, all joy, all love. We are worthy. If not us, who? We are. And that story was told to help you tap into the kind of God's love that I'm talking about today. The kind that is ready, willing, and able to nurture and call forth your greatness. Your greatness. I'm telling you, there is greatness in each and every one of us. Nobody is left out. Nobody is left out. There is a greatness within us all. But we have to awaken to it. That's a little trick there. We have to acknowledge it and wake up to it. What you've been told before that has been self-defeating is not the truth of who you are. It's not. It is absolutely not. So whether it is Archibald Cronin's story or the story of a scientist making significant medical breakthroughs, or your story, God's love is at work. This divine love is not separate from us. That's why I love this teaching. It is not separate from us. It is within us. It is who we truly are. It cannot be altered, damaged in any way, which is like the really good news. We can't mess it up. It's within us. It's there, but we have to turn within and acknowledge it and hone our divine magnificence. And we can call it forth at any time when we're ready, when we have a relationship with the God of our understanding. This is true even when circumstances of the story that you tell yourself are painful and difficult. This is still true. As Joseph said to his brothers who sold him into slavery, you have meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Let me say God is good, and all the time, even in what we're going through, because those conditions that we go through are temporary. They don't last forever. They don't last forever. That's why it's so important to know there's something else besides the condition. There's something else besides your thinking. There is that deep within us that lets us know it's there intuitively, but we have to wake up to it. So when you hit a rough patch in the story of your life, here are some promises of God's love that you can use as your anchor. And these are from the Bible. You say, it's impossible. God says, all things are possible. I can quote them. That's from Luke chapter 18, verse 17. You say, I'm too tired. God says, I will give you rest. Matthew 11, 28 through 30. You say, nobody really loves me. God says, I love you. John chapter 3, verse 16. You say, I can't go on. God says, my grace is thy sufficiency. Corinthians 12, 9. You say, I can't figure things out. God says, I will direct your steps. Yes. Proverbs 3:5. You say, I can't do it. God says, you can do all things. Philippians 4:13. Yes. You say, I can't manage. God says, I will supply all your needs. Philippians 4:19. You say, I'm afraid. God says, I have not given you the spirit of fear. That's powerful. There's no fear in God. It's in the human, because we are living as one, but we do have a dualistic life because we are having this human experience. And as such, it feels separate. But in that separation, then, is the contrast. The human experience and the divine who we are. That's why we know when something feels right or wrong, because there's a contrast in there. There's a contrast that lets us know. Did I finish this? Yes. No, I didn't. You say, God, I'm not smart enough. And God says, I give you wisdom. Corinthians 1:30. You say, I feel all alone. God says, I will never leave you or forsake you. That's Hebrews 13:5. And these quotes from the Bible are truth reinforced once again. And you will find these same truths in nearly every religion. Now we have our ministerial seminary that is in their third year of, they want to know when it's over, but keep extending it a little bit more. There's so much to learn. But it's been an excellent experience to be with these incredible people. But our new class is world religions. So we're going to really deepen into the crux and principles, the basic ones, of all of the world religions. And we're going to find out that basically they all come back to God is love. That's what nearly every single one of them will come back to. So I have this, to end this talk today, I have this beautiful reading from Ernest Holmes' Science of Mind textbook. And I really want you to hear this. So let's just take a breath in as I read this from Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of Science of Mind. Love is the central flame of the universe, nay, the very fire itself. It is written that God is love, and that we are its express likeness, the image of the eternal being. Love is self-givingness through creation, the impartation of the divine through the human. Love is an essence, an atmosphere, which defies analysis, as does life itself. It is that which is and cannot be explained. It is common to all people, to all animal life, and evident in the response of plants to those who love them. Love reigns supreme over all. The essence of love, while elusive, pervades everything, fires the heart, stimulates the emotion, renews the soul, and proclaims its spirit. Only love knows love, and love knows only love. Words cannot express its depth or meaning. A universal sense bears witness to the divine fact. God is love, and love is God. And that's what we, my friends, are deepening into, and hopefully opening something within us to allow this infinite relationship with the God of our understanding to take place. Let us start to affirm today that we have been created out of love. It's better than all the other stories we've been told. Is this all true? I don't know. I don't know. But I believe it. Because it feels good to believe this. And it rings true in my soul. My soul resonates with these teachings, always has. And I can't get enough of them. That's why I know it's good. I know it's real. It's real for me, and it's real for you if you choose it to be. That's on you. This is an empowering spiritual philosophy that we have here. It's empowering because it's telling you that you are so worthy of so much more than you ever imagined. You truly are, each and every one of us. So our true nature is that of love. And let us anchor ourselves then. Let us anchor ourselves in this endless ocean of God's love and let it wash over us. So it is.